Good afternoon, everybody. This is P.J. Norwood for today's Fire Engineering's Humpday Hangout for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Today, man, I'm pretty excited. One, because Frank Ricci's a no-show. Actually, not really a no-show. He'll just be a little bit late. So that gives me the ability to work the show without him. And then he'll jump in here a little later. But I'm really excited because we have some amazing things to cover today. First up, for the first half of the show, we're going to be talking with two phenomenal firefighters out of San Antonio, Logan and Josh, who I think it was on 2018 or 2019. They'll clarify the date. They bailed out of a residential fire, and I first came aware of this incident through social media and a video, and we're going to share that video with you. And then what's really cool, we don't often get this opportunity, is to actually hear from them. So often we see videos of fireground videos from who knows where, and we're all guilty of it. Well, not all of us, but some of us are guilty of commenting and, asking questions and having assumptions, because we never get to hear from firsthand experiences of the firefighters that were involved. And when we're looking at these videos, we're seeing one dimension. We're not seeing all four sides. We're not hearing the radio traffic. We're not hearing everything else that may be going on at that point that's impacting what happened. So today we have an awesome opportunity to, one, see the video, and then two, hear from the two firefighters that had to bail out that window. And guys, man, I'm so grateful that you escaped out of that environment. And for our listeners and watchers today, they'll understand how grateful and how I think lucky you guys are to have survived that incident. So thank you for joining us today. Following that, we have an amazing individual who's doing amazing work for the fire service. Even though she doesn't have any attachment to the fire service, she's doing amazing things in research. And she recently released a dust study, a PFAS dust study that was done in 15 firehouses in Eastern Massachusetts that we're going to discuss today on the second half of the show. So we're really looking forward to that information as well. And as always, we have the boss, Chief Halton, joining us there. Chief, I don't know if you want to say hello and start us off a little bit before we get to Logan and Josh.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much. I appreciate being here. This is going to be a packed show, so I'm going to be very quick. FDIC registration will be opening up soon. You can pre-register, but we'll have all the classes up. We finalized all that. We're just making sure all of our folks are good to go. So August 19th, we'll be seeing you at FDIC. I'm going to try to coerce our friends here to be there, find some space for Anna and Josh and Logan to tell their stories, and I think that'd be great. Graham will be there, Anna, so perhaps we'll be able to work out something where you could follow one another. That would be a fantastic event. So please, if you're going to come, register now. We're going to be in San Antonio the week after FDIC doing EMS Today. So we'll be down there with Logan and Josh and doing an EMS conference, which is critical to what we do as well. So please register early. If you call me 2 days before or 3 days before the event, I can't get you downtown. I can't get you anywhere anyway. So register early if you want to be downtown. FDIC, it's going to be crazy. There's already 25 or 30,000 people have already pre-registered. So it's going to be just insane. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. Both of these stories are critical. So I'm going to stop right now. And I can't thank these guests enough for agreeing to be with us. So without any further ado, Logan, Josh, if you don't mind telling us the story.
Josh, go ahead. I think you're muted though, dude.
Thanks, Chief. So Josh and Logan, if you want to give a brief introduction of yourselves, we'll start with Logan, just for the only reason that I see Logan first on my screen. Brief introduction of who you are, as well as then Josh. I'll play the video, the 1 minute or so video of the incident, and then let you guys tell us what was going on. So go ahead. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, I'm Logan Huesing. Been in the fire service 11 years now. Been with the city of San Antonio for about 4. Currently assigned to Ladder 9 on the east side. Been there since I actually got on with the city. I'm married with a little girl, got a 2.5-year-old who keeps me busy, keeps me running around. So been in love with the fire service ever since I started it. Do a lot of training, work hard, just try to be the best that we can and provide the best that we can for the citizens. And so happy that you guys got us on here to tell our part of the story, because yeah, like you said, that little 30-45 second clip looks rough, looks intense, and there's a lot of different what ifs, could haves, and I wonders, that it's awesome to clear up, so. But.
But we're happy to have you cleared up, but we're also happy to see the video and then to see the both of you sitting here today and know that you're okay and you got home to your little girl, which is ultimately the most important thing. So thank you for joining us, Josh.
Yes, sir. I wanted to start by thanking you for having us on your podcast here. It gives us a voice. Like you said, there's been many comments it's through social media and also in our own department, our own city. So thank you for giving our a voice today. I've been in the fire service since '98. I'm an older guy, 43 years old, married, got 2 kids. Logan is actually closer in age to my kids, my oldest. So I'm the old man there at the station, but I enjoy it. I love being in the fire service. I love being on the back, and I like working with these young guys because they know all the good workouts, and they work hard, and I love what I do. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I'll speak for Chief Halton, which I probably really never do. But when I saw him choking on his sandwich when you talked about being the old guy, and 2, as far as giving you a voice, right? Fire engineering is a great platform for all of us. And then after today, I would consider, if I was the 2 of you, working with Chief Halton, and if you need some assistance from myself or Frank Ricci on sharing your voice at a different platform, whether it's through an online article or an article you write and submit for potentially in print. But those are all things you can talk with Chief Halton about, because fire engineering is a great platform for all of us to share our training, our education, but also firsthand experiences that other people can benefit from.
And don't feel bad, Josh, because my kids are older than you. So, but we should all feel like we came on the job yesterday, all the time. I mean, and I do. I still do. I wake up every day feeling like I'm a rookie. So let's hear the story from the guys who were actually there. This is great.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and play the video, and then we'll hear from them. All right, move this here. So it starts out a little bit blurry, but this will clear up, and I'd like you to pay attention to this window here on the alpha side. All right, so I'm going to stop that because we got the gist of that. But we can see it's from what it appears to be, a 1-story private dwelling, some heavy fire showing out of the alpha side and that front door. And Josh and Logan, man, it's based on that one dimension mentioned. It looks pretty ugly, like you guys mentioned. And I'm grateful that your training, your workouts have really paid off, and you're able to escape that environment. So I don't know who wants to go first or who wants to talk about this, but go ahead. The floor is yours.
Josh, go for it.
Okay, so the video is the very last part of the incident. Of course, we did not enter the house under those conditions. As you can see, it's evening. When we arrived, the house did not look like that. I remember stepping out of the ladder truck, and the first thing I was told by a neighbor is, please, they have kids. And so right away, and you're already thinking that the dwelling, the family house, and to hear that as I get out of the ladder truck, first thing, you put that in the back of your head and you try to use it. So when we arrived, there was probably medium smoke, and we were the second apparatus there. There was another company already there, and they pulled the line to the back. When they pulled the line to the back, we went to help them. As a ladder truck, we, of course, forced entry. The motor needs it, the line needs it, the engine company, I'm sorry. And when we arrived to the back, there was The door was already open. It was leaning off to the side of the hinges, and you can see dryer, boxes of, like, let's say, hoarding conditions, slight hoarding conditions. So we knew that the motor company was going to have to fight through the door being on fire and these boxes and that room. And it looks like the fire was going to be at the Bravo Charlie corner. So they didn't need us. So, and we were assigned search. So we went back to the front and we spoke to our officer, and we were assigned search. And we decided to go into the front door, and it did not look what you see on the video. It did not look like that. You would absolutely not be able to enter the house under those conditions. So when we enter the house, there's medium smoke, no heat. Logan, I'll let you take it from there.
Unmute myself real quick. So, yeah, what Josh said, we went around the back, and again, as we're walking from the Alpha Delta side, we're doing our own size up. We don't have smoke pushing out the windows. We don't have visible flames anywhere. When we get to the back, the smoke is a little bit more intensified. As Josh said, that door kind of fell in, but it didn't need forcible entry necessarily. It was just kind of accessing it to get it uprighted, because like it was a back door where it was also like a laundry room before it went in. All the signs of reading smoke, we are very quick in our district to get anywhere, so recognition of the time that it's been burning. I think everybody on scene was in agreement we're close to an incipient stage fire, right? And it's getting to that growth. With toys in the yard, the neighbor saying they have kids, we are now continuously prioritizing search. And a building isn't clear until the fire department says it's clear. So even if the neighbor said they're gone, we don't fall into that. We let the firefighters who create, or who do the primary search say that it's clear. Once we got around to the Alpha side, we said, okay, we're going to go in here. And again, that engine crew is on the Charlie side, still trying to get in there to put some water on the fire. When we opened that front door, smoke was banked down maybe 3 to 4 feet. So I kind of cheated, and I'm a little taller, but I had to get down on the front porch, and I can see into the living room where I see on the Alpha Bravo corner, I see an L-shaped couch. And in the back of the living room, I see an entertainment center with a TV. And then I see a hallway going kitchen, and you can tell that's mainly where the smoke's coming from. So immediately to our right, we had another door into a bedroom. So me and Josh enter, we shut the front door behind us to control that flow path. Josh enters into the bedroom. We're doing now a tick-oriented search. So I had the tick, I stayed at the door. Josh goes right hand inside, and I'm watching him on the tick. He calls out a bed, searches the bed, goes up to what would be the Delta side wall, searches in there. And when I'm watching Josh, again, not too much heat, nothing, no red flags, nothing like that. The tick flashes and then stops producing an image, but I can still see that it's actually on. I just couldn't, the tick wasn't acting as it's designed to. So I told Josh, hold up. I knew he was straight across from me on the wall the last time I saw him. So I crawled into the bedroom and found him. Now we did a wall-oriented search. So we continue in there. That bedroom actually had a bathroom attached to it. Josh goes into the bathroom. He's like, I got a tub, sink, toilet. We come back out. Immediately past that, we encounter a closet. Josh goes, I'm gonna search the closet. I mean, who knows where kids hide? Who knows what's going on? He starts throwing as much as he can, get some of the clothes and all that stuff underneath it out from there to search it. We move on. That bedroom's clear for a primary. We move into the living room and start moving down the wall. And again, we're on the right side of the wall, and now the front door is probably 10 to 12 feet back behind us. At this point, we started to feel more heat, and to the point where Josh is oriented on the wall. I'm off of his hip, kind of searching, using him as my anchor, and he's using the wall. I'm like, man, it's hot. He goes, well, you're 6'3", get down. I said, I am squatted down, So now we're at the point where he may be either crab walking and or on his knees, and I'm crab crawling behind him, kind of reaching out. And we're like, okay, we're getting hot to where your ears are starting to tingle a little bit. You can start to feel it in some of those exposed areas of, your hood, maybe around your wrist or something like that. And then the red flags was now in about that area where I saw that hallway going into the kitchen, you're starting to see fingering, and it's red, it's hot, fingering coming out of that kitchen. So we're like, okay, let's back out. We're probably having to put our head down. We just reverse. And then it starts to get really hot really quick. So then all we did was we go into that bedroom that we just searched. And I enter in the bedroom. Josh comes right after me. I said, shut the door. We shut it. Conditions improved dramatically. Now we know, okay, our original exit as the front door is now blocked off. So our next option, we got to find a window, right? The window that we found, and the reason that it looks a little weird, I mean, from the video, I come out of the top pane of the window, right? Well, the bottom had interior burglar bars to it. So I get up on a bed on the mattress, take it out with a hook. And on our gear, right in the chest piece, we have a little piece that goes across. You can hook your lapel for your radio on it. You can put your flashlight on it, whatever. That's where I used our carabiner to hook the tick. So Josh is like, okay, go ahead, get out. So I go to get up out over there. It's kind of awkward. That thing is on the top of the bottom window pane. And that's where my arms kind of swing. I mean, I'm just trying to get out. And Josh is like, go, that's where it comes out. And it looks a little violent. When we took that window and when I come out, I'm like, oh, there's fire directly to my right. Now I understand why that room got hot, I come out, some of the guys are like, ooh, they see that fire, they see us coming out. They don't know the conditions that we're in aren't near as bad. They don't know that we shut that room, that we're protected. So they're thinking we got to help our boys out. Let's get them out, drag them out of the way. So from them seeing us coming out, they're like, okay, we got to help these boys. We're like, hey, calm down, calm down. They drag us out of the way. A second engine company came up to the Alpha side and started knocking down that fire with a hose line. And we're like, hey, we're good. We're good. I mean, they're probably thinking our gear's burned up, our packs are gone, our ears are toasted, our neck, our hands, anything like that. But that really wasn't the case at all. I mean, thankfully, because you have plans A, B, and C. A is the quickest, easiest way to get in and get things done. B, things change, might, have a little bit more difficulty. And C is probably like, okay, we need to make up things. We need to, improvise as we go. We were in plan B. So we just knew, okay, well, we searched what we could. If it's not tenable for us, it's not tenable for anybody else. So let's go ahead and make our way out. That we didn't crawl out of that fire into that bedroom. We got out of there before it did that. We shut the door behind us. And then I'm assuming that's when, because I don't have that timeline of when it flashed, or how long we were in there. So apparently at some point that front door was opened. I believe I closed it behind me, whether it got closed all the way or anything like that. We're not sure. We believe somehow, whether a window broke or that door was open, somehow that flow path that was initially going out that engine company was really going to go in on the Charlie side, it got changed, right? And things happen we have no control over. Some things happen on accident. We don't know. There's not enough video or time stamping to be able to identify that. All we know is we took care of ourselves the best we could with the training, from hands-on training, school training. We both have fire science degrees, to hot classes that are offered from the Fools organizations, and just years, both of us have a little bit of time behind us that, I mean, how many hours of Instagram, Facebook videos can you learn? And you just sit here and you're learning from other guys. Oh man, I wonder what happened here. I wonder what happened here. And we were able to subconsciously compile all that at once, going, this is hot. Let's get out. How do we protect ourselves? We don't have a hose line. Let's shut the door. Quickest way out. There it was. So if you saw firefighters come out of the window without the fire, it kind of be like, oh, wow. If you saw the fire without firefighters coming out the window, you're like, oh, wow. When you saw the fire and the firefighters come out the window, you're like, oh, wow. So yeah, I can see where, like, then everybody's like, man, why are they searching in there? There's no tenable space. Hey man, I got a little girl. He's got 2 boys. We're not being unrealistic about things, so nobody had that timestamp of pre-arrival, arrival, and then, so we only see the 45 seconds. But after that, we stood up, kind of dusted ourselves off. The first or the second engine company knocked it down. We grabbed our hooks and we're like, well, we gotta go back in there and pull some sealing, I guess, you know? So again, we didn't lose gear. We didn't lose packs, helmets, not burned, not charred, no burns, nothing like that. So, you know, we did the best we could with what was thrown at us to get out of there. And yeah, it looks rough, but it really truly wasn't all that crazy. But
It's a little misleading to, like, I know you see the fire, you see it's coming out the window, and it's a bailout. In reality, if you look at this post-incident video that I have, we could have sat on the bed. We could have stood on that bed in that room until the guys put the fire out, and we would have been just fine, just sitting on the bed. But of course, the door was blocked. When we went into that living room, I was like, that just your instinct, the timer goes off. You know, it's too hot for me. I'm in bunker gear. It's too hot. The chance of somebody surviving that goes out the door. So there's nobody here. We have to go back. So we go back, like Logan said. We were on a bed in that bedroom. It wasn't hot in there in that bedroom at all. I know it seems like a bailout, but really we were leaving the house because there was no fire. We were in danger. That was our only way out, is through the window. And actually, we missed the lower window. We could have gone out, but we did what we have to do. And no, like Logan said, our helmets weren't burned, our Nomex coats, nothing was burned. So I think, like Logan said, all the training and the timing, your instinct goes off, and it's time to go.
Well, I think personally, I think it's a tactical retreat. Basically, you said that you could sit on the bed, you could have sat on the bed and waited. Well, you know that now.
right.
I can also tell you what yesterday's lottery numbers are, but I couldn't tell you that yesterday, right?
Yes,
so you had no idea if that room was going to remain tenable.
Right.
So why would you take that risk? I mean, that's just anybody who goes down that road hasn't been in too many fires, you know? So I would rather have people tell me, oh, you know, you bailed out of something you didn't have to bail out of, than have somebody say, gosh, why didn't they bail out? You know, that, because it's easy. And that's part of the problem with the whole social media thing. I've pretty much abandoned social media lately, just because I find it so distasteful. Because anybody who came on that and criticized you guys wasn't in that bedroom. And, you know, there but for the grace of God, you know, goes any one of us. Full disclosure, I got disoriented once in a closet in a master bedroom and called for help. We didn't say Mayday back then. I called for help because I was in a master closet. I couldn't find my way out, and I was like running out of air. And the guys were in the bathroom laughing their ass off because, you know, they just basically opened the door and took me out of the closet, which is the jokes write themselves. But the point being, you know, to not say, hey, I need help, or to not go out the window would have been the stupidest thing you could have ever done. So I think you did great. And I think it also shows how fast fire behavior is today, right? Mm-hmm. So in other words, all of that construction of that home, pitched roof, I think I saw a minor pitch, like at 10, 12 or so, pretty common in San Antonio. Yeah. You guys get a ton of snow, as I've seen in the news lately. You know, sub-zero temperatures up to, that is fun. That joke writes itself too. Yeah. But you know, the conditions, you don't have to be inside of a 3,600 square foot or a 6,000 square foot home to get jammed up. You can get jammed up in a 1,000 square foot shotgun, that was like a shotgun style, right? Front door, back door lined up.
Yep. Yes, sir.
You would, all of us, I've been to 5,000 of those fires, you know, and I've seen a couple go bad. You know, I've seen a couple get really sporty, really quick, like yours did. And I think you did a great job. You know, I know your boss, you know, Charles and I are friends. I would have pinned a medal on your chest for going out that window. Are you kidding me? I got 2 firefighters who aren't hurt, who set a good example, who showed good prudence, who are using good technique, who are using all their tools, and who got out alive.
Chief, yes, sir. I appreciate that. So when we went in the front door, I had it in my head that the engine company in the back, they were going in to Charlie Bravo. Okay. And I wanted to go in. I led Logan in, and I wanted to go Alpha Delta. Okay. Are we on the opposite side of the hose line? Yes, sir, we were. We went right in the door. Yes, sir, we were. But I knew they were going to their right from the back, Bravo Charlie, and we were going to the right. So we were opposite. And in my head, I had a timer. And
always just a good officer, a good commander trusts the troops on the ground. You have skin in the game. I don't. And your mission was to what? You thought you had children that could have been overcome inside that building, and you made decisions, smart decisions, that they're going CD or whatever. You're going AB. Outstanding. Good for you. We're going to cover more ground faster and give those kids the optimum opportunity for survival.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Always, the lesson to take away here is always trust the people with skin in the game. And your actions were outstanding. I think the other takeaway is be careful of believing your own lying eyes. You know, when you're watching that video, and it's just human nature. You see the fire, you think that, well, what were these guys doing in there with all that fire? Well, all that fire wasn't in there when you went in.
Yes.
You know, and fire is so fast these days.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand. It's not hotter, it's faster.
Right.
It is just faster.
Yeah. I think the huge lesson, like Logan said, is the door control. And those doors, well, the front door was probably a nicer, bigger, heavy set door, but the bedroom door is the lowest of doors you probably could find at Home Depot today, the cheapest door. I mean, but it served its purpose.
Even some, like, you know, ladder companies ladder companies, a third and fourth in engine that assigns search. I mean, if you're not taking a hose line in there for protection, or even a can, you know, a 5-gallon can, you have to know how to protect yourself. You know, of course, plan A, let's go in right behind the engine company, who they're going right to the seat of the fire and they're going to knock it out, and we'll search right in behind him. That's awesome. You have to be able to make that adjustment and have those skills to be like, well, what if the engine company wasn't there yet? What if we're on scene for 3 to 4 minutes by ourselves? I mean, we can't say, hey, we can't go in. We don't have water here. You know, we have to have those skills to be able to protect yourself. And, you know, like Josh is saying, a lot of where we're at, you know, those houses were built in the 20s, you know, if not earlier. We have a lot of shiplap, and they're well-built homes. But Chief, like you're saying, I mean, you get a mix, you know, because some things have been updated or renovated. And like you're saying, well, we could have hung out in that bedroom if we were 1,000% sure that there was just a closet and a bathroom. But who's to say that they didn't remodel that, and now there's fire coming around and we're sitting there on the bed, and I go, I thought the fire was that way, Josh. It's right here. And then now you actually are in a panic. You know, you're starting to get.
You really don't know what your fuel loading is either, because they could have a home-based business like Methway or Pot Depot. You know, they could have a grow lab or some other, you know, chemical storage.
Right.
So PJ,
like Josh said on the. Oh, go ahead, Chief. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. A couple of points came from online stuff, which is great. Bob Morty mentions that the you know, bars on windows. More and more people are putting bars on their windows these days. So, you know, we got to be thinking about that. Not every window is going to get out like you guys got out. Right. You know, you get caught with some of these, especially the homemade, you know, devices that don't have the quick release on the inside. Right. That could be terrifying, because it's like being stuck in a prison, right? Always remember, if that does happen to you, you could probably get through the wall faster than you'll get through those bars. You know what I mean? So, PJ,
luckily the way we run is we have our truck engineer. Usually, I mean, because we're out of a double house, we got an engine and a truck. So unless that engine's out on something else, we're usually there air brake to air brake. But usually our truck engineer will kill utilities. And then if there's burglar bars, he's going straight for those right after there. You know what I mean? I mean, your engine company engineer, he can throw a fan. If they need an axe, he can bring that. But this is rapid escape. Even if you just pop the bottom to where they can pendulum out. But that's just always being prepared. You don't want to have to think about it and react now when it's happening. You want to be like, okay, when I see burglar bars, I know how, and granted, some of them are homemade and have different ways of being attached. So it might be more difficult. Do I take a Halligan to these? Do I take a sledgehammer? Like, how am I going to get it to where if these guys run into an issue, they have an exit out? So we try to prep for that. But again, it's just, you got to always be learning. You got to look at, you're driving back from a medical run and look at the houses in your area and say, man, did y'all see those burglar bars? Let's make a loop, come back around and check out that house. I mean, like, wow, those were crazy. And then, like our instance, you're like, what do you mean you came out of the top? Why not? Well, I had burglar bars. I didn't see any burglar bars. You're like, you didn't, but I did. Let me show you this. So PJ, if you can, maybe that post-incident video right now, because that actually will show those.
Yep. Yes, we'll show that. I just want to kind of jump in here also. And
okay,
I think, the Chief Halton highlighted a couple of the lessons. And I like to go a little bit further. And everything you've talked about is a lesson by itself and all put together, all the way back to Josh's introduction. He said he likes working with the younger guys because of their training, they're focused in their training and also their workouts. Right. So you go all the way back to there, your pre-fire planning, size up, your training, your education, you're having that plan A, B, and that hopefully not C plan, your fireground awareness of everything going on around you. Josh, you mentioned, you're coming in the opposite of the hose line. Who cares? Right? You're doing what's right for that fireground and for that incident. And you're coming in opposite that hose line. So that's okay. Right? You're doing your job. The textbook is the textbook and it gives us the guidance, but
Yes,
none of our fires go perfect. And we always, good firefighters and good officers know the textbook, but they also know the fireground. And everything from beginning to end. You guys did a phenomenal job, amazing job. Yeah, I think having the burglar bars on the interior, so maybe you didn't see them originally, and having to come up that top part of the window, that's what makes the video so wow, as Logan put it, right? Because we didn't know those other things were going on. We didn't know those other conditions. The biggest lesson outside of the fireground is that social media piece. Listen, for all of those watching today and listening and looking at this in the archive, before you comment, stop and think, right? Look at the conditions, look at what's going on, and try to learn from it. Well, please don't criticize, don't second guess, right? Don't say those two firefighters, they should have never been in there. What are they doing in there, right? Those conditions are too severe. We're going to show the post video now, which is a 30-second video, to really put those rumors to bed, right? And then I would encourage Josh and Logan to get with Chief Halton and really use this as a lesson learned, right? There are so many built-in lessons. And the last piece I'm going to go with, actually two pieces, is the focus on the fire behavior. I take a lot of abuse, rightfully so, abuse for the dollhouse fires and the dollhouse training education. I'll take that abuse all day long, right? But that teaches a lot of us about the fire behavior.
No. PJ, don't diminish yourself. If Ken and Barbie ever have a bad event, we're ready.
We are definitely prepared, boss. and I love those jokes, right? Because I also know the value in understanding and learning the fire behavior from something as simple as a small prop, which Chief Halton has given us a great ability to do fire engineering training minutes, hot classes that include this, as well as articles. But the last piece for those watching today, away from our tactics, is something you mentioned that's very close and dear to my heart, is closed doors, right? You took refuge, I'm going to say refuge behind a closed door, and you really highlighted how good those conditions were behind those closed doors. That's a message that I'm very dear to my heart for our public fire education, that we should really be taking that message to our community, that we really need to be sleeping behind closed bedroom doors, because that hollow core, in Josh's words, cheapest door at Home Depot, made a big difference. And if my wife and my daughter or my loved ones or my family or just anybody in my community is behind that closed door at night sleeping, we are increasing their chances of survival. So I know UL has an entire Close Before You Doze campaign. I would encourage anybody listening today to take a look at the Close Before You Doze website and look at resources that we can use this for public fire education. And then as our conversation is today, really think about our tactics. You guys did orientated search. Your tick, I'm going to say failed, not knowing if it failed or not, right? You had a tick failure. Okay. So you were using technology, but you weren't relying on technology. You went to plan B of a wall orientated search. You closed the door behind you. You knew your surroundings. I can't say enough of how well you guys did. And I'm proud of how well you guys did, as well as you should be proud. And I would really highlight and ask you to work with Chief Walton to really put these lessons out to everybody. And I'm so grateful that you're here with us today, because obviously the video makes it look much worse. Either way, you guys did a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to share you guys are testing me, making me share my screen twice today. I'm going to share my screen, go to this video. So this is the post-fire video.
Yeah, so here you have the Alpha Bravo corner, and this is the L shape. There's the hallway leading into the kitchen.
You can see the burglar bars on the bottom there.
Yep, that's the front door that we went into. Again, smoke 3 feet down. This is the window we came out of, but it'll zoom in right here. And PJ, you might freeze it right about here. Far different environment, right, compared to just one wall over, where you see charring and you see burning and you see, heavy alligator on those 2x6s and stuff. Here, I mean, we pulled that ceiling that's hanging down later, right, to check for extension. So that room there's the closet on the left, the bathroom's on the right, and that's the one that we originally searched, right? And right underneath there is that bed that we came out of. But that's I think that door, you can barely see it to the left. I think at one point is what we shut, and that's, yes sir, right over there. And that's what gave us that little bit of time, right? You don't know, like you said, hollow core, solid core, we don't know, but it's a door, it's something. So.
Well, guys, I really, really appreciate you sharing your story, clearing up some misconceptions. I know we crammed you guys into this 30-minute point, but I want to give you another minute or so for each one of you. So if there's any lasting things you want to clear up or say, the floor is yours, and then we're going to go over to Anna to talk about some dust study stuff. So go right ahead. Logan, why don't you go first again, because you're the one I'm seeing first. No disrespect to Josh.
I don't really have anything. I mean, if you end up on a video like this, don't read the comments. I mean, we read it from our local news, right? Our local news comments from citizens and stuff like that. And then it got to, I think a couple of years ago, it went out somewhere and there was 150, 200 comments on it. And then recently when it got rehashed on it, if you're ever up on a video like that, you know what happened. Good, bad, pros, cons, do's, don'ts. You learn from it. You guys providing us this platform right here to kind of clear it up. And, guys like, why did you crawl in there? Man, I didn't crawl in there. You know what I mean? That's not what it was like. I'd like to share my story with you so that you understand that. And then don't ever be afraid, I guess, to defend yourself, to tell you, hey, this is what we did. This is why things turned out great instead of bad. I think a lot of firefighters these days are very, very prideful. And hey, man, if we messed up, well, what are we going to learn from that? And how do I share that so other guys don't mess up, So thank you again for having us. Thank you for letting us get that out there. Thanks for letting us show you, hey, this is what went well. This is what could have gone better. But, we really appreciate that. I don't have to defend myself to anybody. Me and Josh know, and the guys on scene know what went well, but it is awesome to be able to get out and show that a little bit more, to go further with that. And especially with, a fire community like this that really knows and appreciates what we're talking about. So.
Awesome. Josh?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys having us again. Like I said, the video does look pretty wild. I admit that. The comments, it's like Chief Hall says, the comments, if you're commenting why we did this or that, then you probably haven't made many fires, or you probably haven't had much experience. You're just Monday morning quarterback. And I would never do that to any other fireman. I wasn't there. I didn't walk in his shoes. I just appreciate you guys having us. And hey, if you see anything on there, I appreciate any coaching, any training that you guys can provide for us, because there's always room for improvement. And I appreciate you guys having us again. Thank you.
Hey, why don't you guys hang around for Anna, because I think you're going to find this really interesting.
Well, Anna, I'm sorry we're cutting 13 minutes into your time, but firefighters are chatty Cathys. I'll go all day.
No. You forget, Logan. I get to pay the bills, so she can go as long as she wants.
Okay.
So the last thing I'm going to finish up with, Josh, I'd like to say that don't cut yourself short. I think that you could be offering the fire service some training and education to all of us. Thankfully, most firefighters have not been put in that situation. So you have been, and Logan have been put in that situation, and you handled it perfectly in my book. Everything that I see and perfectly, so you guys can help teach us. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to kind of set you up with Frank Ricci has a monthly radio show called Politics and Tactics, also on the fire engineering platform. I'm going to make sure that when he joins us later, that he hooks up with you guys. It's a little different platform because they won't be able to get to see the videos. However, it's still another way to get the story out, because I think the tactics that you took, A+, couldn't have worked out any better. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you for joining us today and clearing up the air. And we'll be talking more in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll definitely have you on the radio show. We're always looking for good guests and great firefighters from the great state of Texas. So what's better than that?
Yes, sir.
That's the Republic of Texas to you, pal.
I didn't see Frank slide in. I was setting him up with his radio show and didn't think he was there. He caught me. Thanks for joining us, Frank.
Sorry, it's been a crazy day.
So Anna, we are not constrained by time, and guys, stick around for this. PJ, if you don't mind, I'll just really quickly. Anna has done a study on dust particles as it relates to fluorinated chemicals. And fluorinated chemicals, just so you know, are the PFASs, and that encounters a wider range of PFOASs, all kinds of other chemicals that they use in the production of PFASs. And why is that important to firefighters? Well, we know that it's in the materials that make up our bunker gear. We know that it's in a lot of other common products, and we know that these are called, and Anna will probably correct me on some of this fake science I'm spewing here, but they're called forever chemicals because the degradation of them takes really intense temperatures in a controlled environment. And I think it's, so they're not easily, polar bears, Graham Peasley has told me that polar bears have been found to have PFAS particles in their bloodstreams. So that's how widespread they are in our oceans, in our environments. And we know they're not healthy to plants and animals and people. And they're also in our AFFF foam, and our AFFF foam, which has been used in such massive quantities, they now have SARA Superfund Reauthorization Act sites to remediate the cleanup of those locations, several of those locations, predominantly led by the Air Force, if I'm correct, Anna, right? That is mitigating some of those groundwater contamination sites. And if you want to learn more about that, you could watch, for entertainment purposes, you could watch the movie Dark Waters. It's the history of a friend of ours, Rob Beloit, who's an attorney who kind of got this ball rolling about the groundwater contamination and the issues. So PJ, I didn't mean to steal any thunder, but if you want to jump in here now and tell folks about Anna's recent work, and then Anna can tell us what she's found.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give a little brief bio of Anna, but also want to throw this out there because, at times we've been, we don't want to think we're calling fire in the movie theater here, right? It's very clear that we understand that PFOs live in our gear. They live in our firehouses now from this dust study. And us as the fire service need to figure out what we can do to reduce our risk today. The manufacturers are making great strides at looking at alternative fabrics and alternative turnout gear for us to utilize, but it's going to take them some time. They can't, in a day, flip a switch and automatically have all of us in turnout gear that doesn't include PFAOs or PFAs. So we need to be mindful that, yeah, they're there. We still need more research and study done to see how and if they're actually being absorbed into us. right? Because we know it's there. Now, how are we actually absorbing it into our bloodstream, which I'm sure every point of it shows that it absolutely is, but I do think that a little bit more research needs to be done there. But I don't want firefighters to think that, oh, we can't wear our gear. No, we still have a mission. You still need to wear your gear when it's appropriate, but maybe not to the meal, maybe not any EMS calls, maybe only when you truly need to wear your gear. And today's session of Dust is really going to bring to light a whole nother piece that some of us were really not thinking about. And Anna's a doctoral researcher in chemical exposure science at Harvard School of Public Health. She earned her PhD and master's degree in environmental public health from the school. She conducted many studies about workplace exposures and PFAS and other chemicals, and about the benefits of PFA-free building materials to reduce toxic exposures. So I asked her earlier when we first met if she had any ties to the fire service, and she kind of laughed and said no, but she was really interested in hearing Logan and Josh's story to kind of see what we go through. So I think people like Anna are amazing to us because the work that they do and work that she has done to help keep us safer, not having any tie to the fire service is a great testament to her and her work. So Anna, thanks for joining us today. And why don't you tell us a little bit about this study?
Yeah, so first, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's truly an honor to be here. And thank you, Logan and Josh, for sharing your stories. I'm in awe of your bravery. Yeah, so I'll add a little bit more background to build on what Chief Halton was telling you. So these group of chemicals that we refer to as PFAS, PFAS, or forever chemicals, which actually my mentor on the study, Joseph Allen, coined that name, forever chemicals, because they last forever in the environment. This is a group of thousands of man-made chemicals that repel water, stains, oil, which is why they've been added as coatings to hundreds of different types of products, including couches, carpet, nonstick pans, clothing, AFFF, and now we're learning the gear. And because these PFAS aren't tightly bound to the products, they can travel out of the materials and get into our buildings and get into our bodies. So it's unsurprising that these chemicals have been found in the blood of over 98% of Americans. And studies have shown that firefighters can sometimes have even higher levels of certain PFAS in their blood than the public. And we know that exposures to PFAS are concerning because they've been linked to kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, even obesity, diabetes, and what feels especially relevant now, suppressed immune function. Yeah.
So Anna, when you say suppressed immune functions, you're talking about things like RA and some of those other autoimmune type diseases that people get?
So actually what's really interesting is that they're one of the most potent immunotoxics out there, and studies have shown that they alter vaccine effectiveness. So for example, a doubling of the levels of these chemicals in blood of children results in half the level of antibodies to certain like tetanus and diphtheria. So they suppress. Yeah,
that's scary. Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Anna, I had a question for you. So you're saying that these levels are higher in firemen. Is there an obvious reason that I'm missing? Is it because of the entry into homes and smoke, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the previous research has focused on AFFF and smoke from fires as the two contributing sources to those exposures. But recent concern in the past few years has hypothesized that turnout gear could also be a source of exposure to these chemicals, which is what we evaluated in our study.
Okay. You spoke of the Air Force, I think, Chief. I don't know if you did or PJ.
Yes, that's correct.
I spent 11 years working as Air Force fireman, and AFFF was our primary, besides water, it was AFFF, and we were around it all the time, so that makes me a little nervous.
So Anna, so as Josh said, AFFF, and now we've determined that it's in our gear, right? It was on Teflon, cooking surfaces, things like that over the years. I've got a few, being a former Texan, and now I'm an Oklahoman where the real cowboys live. I had to go there. My slicker, the slicker that I have a couple of older slickers for, wearing out when you're working, all treated with, forever chemicals, because they're great water repellents, and they're also has some thermal properties. So one of the things that Anna has done for us is the question became, how much was our gear contributing, as well as the AFFF and other, products that we're bringing into the firehouse, contributing to this unusual amount of PFASs being discovered in firefighters' blood. So Anna, tell us about what you did in Boston and what you found in the Boston firehouses in regards to PFASs, and some of your thoughts on that.
Sure, of course. Yeah, so these were fire stations in Eastern Massachusetts, not just Boston. And I want to put this in context of two other studies that just came out last year. So the first, led by Graham Peasley, found these PFAS in the firefighting gear, including in new unused jackets. And then there was a second study published in November, led by Heather Stapleton's group from Duke, that found that certain PFAS were higher in dust in fire stations compared to residential homes. So that was adding evidence that there is a unique source of PFAS in fire stations. And then our new study, just published a few weeks ago, linked those two results from those two studies and showed that not only are PFAS in the turnout gear, but they're also an important source of PFAS in dust in the fire stations we sampled in Massachusetts. So PFAS are in the gear, and they are carried back via the gear into the indoor environment of fire stations, which could extend exposures beyond just the time while out fighting fires. And I can briefly describe, the methods and specifics of the study. So we vacuumed dust samples in different rooms within 15 career fire stations. We also took swabs of 6 turnout gear jackets in the stations, and this field work was led by Emily Sparrow-Fine. And then we measured levels of a couple dozen PFAS in the dust samples and the gear swabs. This was done by our collaborators, Elsie Sunderland and Heidi Pickard from the Harvard Engineering School. And we found that the median level of all the measured PFAS in the dust was higher in the turnout gear locker areas compared to the living spaces in the stations, even though the gear locker areas typically didn't have more traditional sources of PFAS like furniture and carpet. And then we also found that the profiles of PFAS were different between the gear areas and the non-gear areas in the state.
Explain profile.
Yep, so there were different variants of PFAS in the gear areas. So different types of PFAS chemicals, which indicates a different source in those rooms. For example, these weren't necessarily the PFAS from carpet and furniture, but ones that we thought indicated that gear is a contributing source. So there were higher levels of 5 types of PFAS in the dust where the gear was stored. And those same PFAS were also identified on the swabs of the gear, which implicated gear as an important source of PFAS in those stations.
So I know this is not, if Frank and P.J. will indulge me for a second, just because this is fascinating to me. This is not scientific language here, but, and if you'd indulge me for a moment, in listening to and also, if you want to read a great firefighter write-up of Anna's study, John Marr, who has Station Pride website, great website. John did a great write-up. He did a great piece with some good links, and thank you, John, for doing that. John's a great guy, and he's been on top of this deal for a long time. So if you think about it, I've got a golden retriever, and I love my golden retriever, and every 2 or 3 days, my wife vacuums up a full vacuum container full of golden retriever hair. And it's the downside of owning a golden retriever. And so the gear, in essence, if I'm following you, Anna, is shedding, if you will, some of these chemicals just naturally. In other words, they're just leaching out, as we know with one of the examples we use with young firefighters in terms of off-gassing is we tell them, when you open up a brand new shower curtain and it's nice and soft and supple, and you hang it up in you guys got young children, you hang it up in your young boy's bathroom, and then, every year you put on your level A hazmat suit and you go in to clean your son's bathroom, you take down that shower curtain and it's rigid and stiff because all of those chemicals have leached out. They've gone into the atmosphere, correct, Anna? Because density, osmosis, chemicals are always trying to find balance. So they're leaching out due to heat, due to abrasion, due to just natural oxidation. So the PFASs in our gear theoretically are shedding or leaching out. And to your study, Anna, it kind of validates that hypotheses, because you're saying in our gear storage areas, there's a noticeably higher concentration of these PFASs.
Exactly. Thanks, Chief Halton. So that's exactly right. We're seeing that these PFAS are getting out into the stations. That's more evidence that they're not just staying in the gear. And we know more broadly about PFAS because they're not like intrinsically bound within the material, that they can readily migrate out and get onto skin, get into dust, get into the air.
Logan, give that to Anna, voice that about the heat. That's a good question.
So my question was, and Chief was just kind of hitting on it, because I guess you had said one of your main studies produced that there was a higher percentage in the gear and turnout lockers wherever they store their gear, right? But not necessarily as in some of the other ways. Is the release of the chemical, I guess you could say, either initiated or, is it a catalyst to that gear being exposed to heat and is off-gassing? Or could you essentially say, like Chief said, you pull out a brand new curtain and you smell that? If you pull out brand new bunker gear, are we automatically starting to get exposed to it, if you would? Or does it have to have that, okay, you're exposed to heat, now it's essentially off-gassing and incomplete particles of combustion, if you would?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Logan. So they don't require heat to migrate out. A lot of them, the PFAS chemicals, we refer to them as semi-volatile, which means they can steadily and slowly migrate out or off gas over many years. Yeah, unfortunately. Great question.
So we got a question from Facebook from Doug Rice, and Doug wants to know, are these PFAS some of the chemicals used in giving fire resistance to fabric, like under the California TB 117 requirement? Are they commonly found in fire resistive chemicals concentrations?
So yeah, that's interesting. So this is a different class of chemicals, but so I think he's referring to flame retardant chemicals. Correct. Which have often been, I would say, unnecessarily added to consumer products and building materials when they aren't needed. And those, similar to PFAS, they can migrate out of our couches and carpet and electronics.
And for full disclosure, neither Anna nor I nor anybody in this panel is saying that anybody added fire-resistant chemicals or PFAS with any ill intent. It was all done with the best of intentions. In other words, when you think about our gear, there's bloodborne pathogens, there's products that we get contact chemicals and such that we don't want touching our skin at all or permeating our gear. These were added to stop us from being exposed to other bad things. Right. So in of themselves, that they may be bad, they may be protecting you for something that's badder. And I'm an editor, so I can say bad sentences like that. So just teasing. But so it's a fact. It's the unintended consequences, right? That we may be looking at. And so just for full disclosure, this is not a conversation about culpability or accountability or anything like that. We just want to help Anna to get the word out there that, we shouldn't be, and I'll take exception with PJ's one word PJ said, maybe. No, we should not be wearing our bunker gear to EMS calls. No, we should not be working out in our bunker gear. No, we should not be taking our bunker gear home. No, we should not be going to the grocery store in our bunker gear. No, we shouldn't be going to stair climbs in our bunker gear. We should put our bunker gear on when we're going in to fight a fire. And then after we fight the fire, we should come out. If the gear got dirty, put it in a bag, have it laundered, bring it back to the station, and keep it in the bag.
That's going to be my question, Chief, to Anna, was we make a fire and then having it washed, laundered, like Chief said, is that a positive thing for the gear, or it just remains the same, or what happens then?
Yeah, that's great. So we do recommend that gear is washed regularly after every fire or training activity. because in addition to PFAS being added to the gear, they can also contaminate the gear after fires, from smoke where consumer products are burning, and that can contribute PFAS, or if, AFFF is being used. So washing the gear should help with that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I'll say,
So
our
Anna,
study.
follow up on Josh's question. If the PFAS naturally leach from the gear, if we wash it, is it then in that water, and that we then put it into the water? In other words, and if that water is then going into a municipal sewer system, are we sending that into the food chain?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big problem in general with PFAS. And we know that, for example, AFFF getting into the groundwater has led to the drinking water contamination of millions of Americans. So that is something we need to consider too.
Chief Fulton, I know you took exception to my word maybe, and I couldn't agree with you more. That was words matter, and that was a poor choice of words, and I couldn't disagree with anything that you said there. We should absolutely be looking to reduce our exposure to our turnout gear to when it's actually needed. We still have a mission, and we still have to wear our gear, but we do not need to wear it the way we have traditionally worn it for many, many years. I'd like to go over to Frank and give Frank a chance to ask some questions. I saw him smiling, and I love his body language. They can tell he has some input. And I know Frank comes from a department that's different than mine. He comes from a more, and Logan and Josh, they come from a city, very different from the urban department that I work for, where we don't wear our turnout gear the way a lot of the firefighters do in the city, where they're running back-to-back calls, where it's easier for them to keep their gear on. So I'd like to get Frank's perspective on that and see what ELT has to offer for us today.
Yeah, I used to wear my gear all the time, grocery store, wherever. We were always in our gear because you're always going to get another call. The question I had from Anna, and I think you might have answered it, but I want to make sure it's clear. When you found the forever chemicals in high concentrations in the gear rooms or the gear locker areas, and then you said in the living quarters you found different PFABs, was there cross-contamination though? Were you finding the same? Was it moving from the gear lockers to the living quarters? What was the correlation between the two areas, or were they vastly different, and that isolation between your gear and the living quarters, was that enough?
That's a really great question. We are not certain about that. I can imagine there's some cross-contamination, and we did see some similar PFAS in both areas. But there were some unique signatures in the gear locker areas, the sort of forensic evidence that pointed to gear as being a different source than living rooms. Whereas living rooms, the major type of PFAS in the living rooms was a chemical that's often found in consumer products like carpet. So there were distinct sources in those rooms. Yeah.
Okay, and as of right now, there's no way scientifically to change the actual chemical. Like carbon monoxide with a catalytic converter, you can convert it to CO2 and change its chemical makeup. With forever chemicals, pretty much it is what it is. And if you're washing it off, you're just moving the chemical. You're not really mitigating or changing the chemical. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So washing is more about protecting, the human health side. And that's helpful because dust isn't the only route of exposure. That's what we looked at, but firefighters could be exposed through direct skin absorption from wearing the gear, inhalation, or dust. We're not sure what's the most important one right now. Dust was the one lens through which we investigated sources of PFAS, but a lot of these strategies, like separating gear as much as possible from the fire station, living areas, and from firefighters would help with those pathways.
Our good friend Nick Salome has a great question for you, Anna. Nick asks, have PFAS been identified in our fire-resistant uniforms? In other words, we have things called station wear that are also treated to be fire, and in some cases we have uniforms that are treated to also be shock resistant. So have the PFAS be found? Has anybody looked at studying those particular fabrics?
Not that I know of. We do know that PFAS are added to clothing, outdoor clothing, jackets in general. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of them used PFAS, maybe at lower levels than turnout gear that really has to be water resistant and heat stable, but that would be interesting to look at. Yeah.
And I got one for you. When you were doing your studies in your 15, I think you said 15 different stations.
Yep.
You ran into, I'm sure, a couple different means of how they stored their gear, right? Did you see any that seem to work better as like a safer storage, whether it's the hang up racks or a complete closed in room, or did you find anything that was like, oh wow, these areas or the close proximity areas didn't have as much exposure because they had them sealed, or maybe this was a vented rack or anything like that?
Yeah, that's an awesome question and idea. We didn't sample enough stations to really be able to tell the difference, but I can imagine, that some that, really have a separate storage area that's not close to that's not right near the living spaces is helpful, and containing the gear in any way would also be helpful. Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me, PJ, of the study we did with, and Frank, with UL. Remember when we built those basically gear container lockers to see about off-gassing, and we tried to measure, we did measure, I can't remember the technician's name, British character who was with UL at the time. I think he's still there. But anyway, Kenny Fent. If you Google Kenny Fent, Logan, he did some really interesting work. Kenny did some really interesting work. He's with the CDC. I believe he's Commander Fent now with the CDC. And he did some interesting studies on gear off-gassing in compartments. And then how long it off-gassed. And remember, because there was a big hubbub about 4 or 5 years ago that your gear is off-gassing. How long is it off-gassing? And Kenny basically found out it off-gassed for about 15 minutes. Then after it cooled, it was kind of like neutralized. And so, and I apologize, I can't remember exactly the gentleman who did the air sampling, but UL has looked at that. But now to this point, I think with Anna's encouragement, now we've got the opportunity to talk about looking at, water contamination from PFAS, storage opportunities. What should the liner? So here's my really dumb question, and I apologize, but Jethro Bodine was always ahead of me in grade school, and so that's a joke about the Beverly Hillbillies, which probably only I got. But anyway, right? So anyway, we all have gear bags, Anna, and they're basically just canvas bags, and they're gorgeous. People build them for us so we can move our gear. When many of us rotate out and rotate around, especially in the municipal departments. Especially when you're junior in rank, you can show up and, hey, they're shy somebody at 32, and you're humping over. So we carry our gear, in a bag, or if you're a new lieutenant or a new captain, lots of times you just float until they find a place to settle you down. So we have these things called gear bags. In future studies, would you consider looking at those bags and seeing how much of the PFAS we're collecting in there? And would you ever consider talking with your colleagues about what should the liner of those bags look like to stop PFAS from leaching out of those bags?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I can imagine washing the bags, if that's possible, may help.
Oh, yeah.
And and even just thinking a little bit bigger picture, I want to stress that there are a lot of strategies firefighters and fire stations can take to reduce their exposures now. But I think, the burden really shouldn't have to be on firefighters to protect themselves from these avoidable exposures to chemicals on the job. And we really need to remove all types of PFAS from the gear and other products, since that's, the most effective way to reduce exposures is at the source, instead of, through cleaning floors, which helps, but, we really want to get to the root cause. And I also want to add that, we've seen in the past that because there are over 5,000 different types of variants of PFAS, that they're often substituted one for another. So even we saw this with AFFF, I think, is where they phased out 2 common types of these chemicals, but they were often swapped or replaced with other types of PFAS. It's this never-ending
long chain Cs then came into vogue. So,
and I had a question. I'm sorry, Chief.
No, go ahead.
So the high levels in the station, the bunk rooms and things like that, would you encourage the stations to, because a lot of times we have the bay doors in front of the firehouse. The Logan and I work at is, I don't know, built in 1913 or something. It's super old. So we have bay doors in the front, and a lot of times we like to leave them open just for ventilation purposes. But the COVID has really shut that down, and we've had to close doors because we can't have people walking through. Would you say venting the bay area where storage is at and the apparatus are at, do you think that would be a better way to handle this, or to have ventilation, I guess?
Definitely. You guys are asking amazing questions. Ventilation is helpful for not just these chemicals, but so many types of pollutants. It's really important to bring in fresh air into a building and to get those pollutants that build up indoors out of the buildings. So opening windows or the bay doors definitely helps with that too. Helps with reducing our risk of COVID transmission too, which is great. And another, strategy if you can't bring in fresh air is to frequently clean the floors and make sure dust isn't building up. And doing that with a vacuum that has a HEPA filter, because those HEPA filters prevent the dust from just being resuspended back into the air that you breathe. So, good vacuums or wet microfiber mops can also help with that indoors.
Anna, I just got a text message. Is it dust that you can see? Kind of like what Bobby was talking about with the golden retriever. No one told him that golden retrievers only shed twice a year, 6 months at a time.
I also own
6 months at a time.
I also
Bobby.
own a Shiba Inu who sheds all the time.
I have a Shiba Inu too. It's my favorite dog. But
one quick before Frank goes, I just want to apologize to everyone. I have a hard break, so I apologize. I need to go, but keep talking. Anna, you're featured in my upcoming editorial called Known and Unknowns. I'll send it to you. Some of your comments and your work. And I hope that you'll support some of my recommendations for labeling, third-party validation of what's in the gear, and then for I think increased diligence in how we store, maintain, wear our gear, and I'm hoping I can get your support on those. So, PJ, Frank, thanks for allowing me to intrude on your time.
Always welcome, boss. We're glad to hear you're doing well, and go take care of yourself. And we love you.
Thanks, Logan. Joshua, it was a pleasure, and I'll see you guys in San Antonio.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks,
Thank
boss.
you.
Sir.
God bless everybody.
So Anna.
Okay, so Anna, so is the dust? Is it dust that you can see, or is this dust that you can't see?
Yeah, you can't always see it. These chemicals are invisible. And I know it seems weird that dust can be a major route of our exposure, but we actually incidentally ingest it, even though we don't know we do, or inhale it. So that's how it gets into our bodies in some ways.
So
And we're coming up on the closing time here, but what's the next step? I mean, all of these studies are great, and the work of Diane and Sean Mitchell and Burns. I mean, everybody's been working together to get the word out about this. Graham Peasley. I mean, you've all been amazing, but it almost seems like we're watching an episode of Oak Island, where each time we get more information, there's just 12 more questions. But the fact of the matter is, it's in our gear. We're getting exposed to it every day. We still need to put the mission first. You still have to wear your gear when you're fighting fires, but try to minimize your exposure as much as possible. Try not to wear it all the time. Try not to bring it into the living quarters when you're sleeping, like we used to put your turnout gear right next to your bunk. Maybe that's not a good idea, but you still need to wear your gear to put the mission forward. And I think the next step is we need individuals who are as intelligent as yourself and Graham Peasley to move and work on the medicine end to find out. And I think we already know the answer. I mean, he said it's in a polar bear, but I mean, to confirm that it's in higher levels in firefighters, which I think that the anecdotal evidence is that we all believe that, correct?
Yeah, so I'd add to that. I think we know enough in the science already to know that we should act on these chemicals and get them out of materials. And I think, but still next in the research, we need to understand how much of the PFAS from gear get into the bodies of blood of firefighters and what that means for their health.
Great. And Anna, if we could have you on our radio show, we would love to continue to get the word out. I mean, you're incredible. We love anybody that goes to Harvard. My boss was the first editor of the law review at Harvard as a female, which was quite remarkable. She took over for Barack Obama when she left. So we always love to talk to somebody from Harvard. PJ, do you want to have the last word?
Yeah, so Fred, thanks. I have a few things. So Logan, Josh, and Anna, first of all, thank you for the amazing information that you provided and education to firefighters that you provided today. Fire Engineering's Facebook live feed has a lot of questions that we haven't been able to get to. So if the three of you would have a little bit of time as soon as possible, I know everybody's schedules are pretty filled. If you go over there and any questions that you can answer, we would appreciate you answering those questions for some of our listeners. I did receive some information as far as the station uniform question, that there has been some research done. It has not been released yet, that the station uniforms do contain some forever chemicals as well. So obviously we'll be looking for that research. Frank, I couldn't agree more that every time we have a great guest like Anna on, we hear some really alarming things and more questions come up. But we're making great progress. For those of you that were with us, I believe it was last month prior to the IFF convention, the resolution 28, and I forget, was it 30 or 31, Frank?
I think it was 31.
31. There was two resolutions that were put forward by Sean Mitchell and Jason Burns out of Massachusetts that regarded forever chemicals in our turnout gear. Overwhelmingly passed the IFF convention. Thanks to the great support from all the leaders of IFF. I think only 10 people voted against it. Like Frank said, they probably didn't know what they were voting against. So we are making big strides in this fight. And there's a lot of focus on firefighter cancer. And the one piece that I want to make sure that I remind everybody, and I get reminded by Bill Carey, is that this is one piece of the puzzle. And we should be putting as much effort, if not to combating our health, our weight, our physical ability, physicals, keeping our mask on until the environment is metered. There are all these pieces of the puzzle to firefighter cancer. And while this is one big one, we can't lose sight of all the rest. So we appreciate all those folks out there doing some great research that are helping to make us safer and to enjoy our fire services career, as well as long into retirement to keep us healthy. So we appreciate you, Anna, and all your colleagues for all the work that you're doing. I would encourage you to, hook up with Frank to get onto his radio show as well. And Josh and Logan, thank you, man. You guys did an amazing, amazing job. And thanks for joining us today. And that's it. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anna, keep up the great work. We need researchers and scientists like yourself to keep putting these issues to the forefront, because it is making a huge impact. So thank you, Josh and Logan. Texas, we love you. We'll have you on the radio show. Sorry, I missed a bunch of your thing. We can educate me on the radio show. Everybody have a great day. And again, thanks to Diane, Josh, Jason, Sean Mitchell, all these guys for putting this forward, because it is making a difference.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.